Good afternoon, everyone. This is the continuance of our budget hearing. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the next individuals to testify?
We have Kristen Del Rossi, Streets Commissioner, Randy Heyman, Water Commissioner, and finally we have Atif Saeed, Chief Executive Officer of Philadelphia International and Philadelphia Northeast Airports.
We're going to ask for all three of you to come on up and give your testimony, and then we will open up for members of City Council to ask questions of all three of you for round one and round two. Commissioner Del Rossi, if it's all right, could you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony? Then next we'll have testimony from Philadelphia International Airport and the Water Department in that order.
Good afternoon, Council President and members of City Council. I am Kristen Del Rossi, Streets Commissioner. Joining me today are Richard Montanez, First Deputy Commissioner for Transportation, Christopher Newman, Deputy Commissioner for Administration, Michelle Brisbane, Chief of Staff. I am pleased to provide testimony on the Department of Streets fiscal year 2026 operating budget. I'd like to start by recognizing our staff. It has been a busy year full of triumphs and incredibly hard work. I am so proud of the work the employees of the department have performed and their accomplishments, and would like to use this opportunity to expand on their work and achievements as part of this testimony. My department's vision is to make roadways across Philadelphia safe for everyone, no matter how they choose to travel. Traffic safety is at the core of every service and project we deliver. To achieve this, we plan, design, build, maintain, repair, and manage the operation of our city's transportation network. The FY26 budget transportation fund request for the Streets Department is $79.6 million as reflected in the budget ordinance for my department. This budget focuses on the internal resources used to make our transportation network safe, equitable, and provide economic opportunity for all. Our request includes the addition of a second line striping crew to be incorporated as part of our overall staffing, including 832 full-time and 846 part-time budgeted positions. Roadway repair and maintenance plays a pivotal role in our transportation network, providing safe and efficient egress for all modes of travel. The new line striping crew creates additional capacity to address these maintenance and safety needs across the city. Our part-time employees consist of our incredible school crossing guards, each of which we strive to recruit from within 1 mile of their assigned intersections. Ensuring the safety of our children walking to and from school is an essential function, and our guards have performed this work with dedication and commitment. Thanks to this commitment and my staff's hard work and dedication, we have assigned over 800 guards this year, by far the largest number since Streets assumed responsibility for this program. Our full-time positions cover a wide range of titles and functions. The volume, scope, and variety of work performed by our staff is too expansive to share during this brief testimony, but the work speaks for itself. We repair potholes, over 50,000 just this past year alone. Every pothole reported to 311 gets addressed in an average of 3 days. We clear snow, treat icy roadways. This past year, we coordinated with our partners to mobilize hundreds of staff and vehicles for 5 winter weather events, each a monumental undertaking, working around the clock and driving thousands of miles. I am also proud to report Streets has resurfaced more than 50 miles to date this fiscal year, and we expect to reach over 100 miles by the end of June. If accomplished, this will represent the first time the city has resurfaced 100 miles since 2004, a more than 20-year time span. This expected achievement is the result of critical program investment made by the Parker administration, this city council, and the incredible work of our roadway resurfacing crews. Our traffic calming program is another great example. Streets staff from across the department have worked together to address speeding on 738 blocks, 100 miles of roadway, around schools, and in communities across Philadelphia. These requests are reviewed and designed by city engineers, managed or installed by city paving crews, with pavement markings by city line striping crews, and signs fabricated and installed by our traffic sign shop. Another team with an essential role in improving the quality of life for all neighborhoods throughout the city is our street lighting division. Over the past year and a half, they have been diligently working along with the Philadelphia Energy Authority on the Philly Streetlight Improvement Project. This is a transformational upgrade to 130,000 streetlight fixtures. The new networked LED lights use 50% less electricity and cut the city's emissions by 10%, all while illuminating roadways and improving safety, whether you walk, bike, drive, or take transit. Behind all of this and every freshly paved street, newly rehabbed bridge, trail extension, bike lane, every transportation capital project are teams of streets employees making them happen. We all care deeply for this city, and our role in providing access to safe roadway infrastructure leads to endless opportunities for all Philadelphians. We therefore request your favorable consideration of this budget request, and we thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. The deputies, staff, and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Atif Saeed.
Good afternoon, Council President and members of City Council. I am Atif Saeed, Chief Executive Officer of Philadelphia International and Northeast Philadelphia Airports. It's an honor to be here today to present testimony on the Department of Aviation's fiscal year 2026 operating budget. Joining me today are Tracy Borda, Chief Financial Officer, and Alicia Walls, Chief Administrative Officer, as well as many other members of Department of Aviation team. The City of Philadelphia's Department of Aviation, which owns and operates Philadelphia International Airport and Northeast Philadelphia Airport, is an enterprise fund operating efficiently with no local tax dollars, independent of the city's general fund. Both airports are self-sustaining, earning revenues through operations on site. As many of you were in attendance to witness at our first State of the Airport event last fall, this past year we released an updated combined economic impact of our airport system. Our airports are incredible economic driver to the regional economy. The new study from 2023 estimated that our airports generated approximately $18.7 billion annually for the economy, support more than 102,000 regional jobs, and contribute $119 million annually in tax revenues to the city's general fund. This past year, we saw service commence to 3 new European destinations, courtesy of American Airlines, to Nice, Naples, and Copenhagen. This upcoming year, we anticipate additional European service to Milan and Edinburgh. While PHL remains a transatlantic gateway, we also saw new growth in Caribbean and Central American markets, with new service this year to Costa Rica, Barbados, and Mexico City, while continuing to work to connect Philadelphia to key markets in South America, Africa, and Asia. Looking ahead, our team is busy preparing for 2026. Our capital development team is in the middle of completing $500 million in physical infrastructure investment spread over 50 different projects to enhance the overall customer experience at our airports. One of those key investments is the restroom renovation program, We opened 3 new restroom sets last month and will open 5 more through July. We're also focused on creating vibrant local experiences within our airport. We continue to emphasize local participation in PHL Food and Shops program and bring the best of Philadelphia food, culture, and retail experience to travelers. We now have 19 local favorites and 2 more are opening this year, Federal Donuts and Oyster House. In addition to physical infrastructure investments, PHL is investing in our people. Last year, we launched PHL Works, which is an airport-wide initiative designed to elevate customer service and improve guest experience through employee training and other tools. The goal of this program is to establish an airport-wide universal customer service culture that provides our guests an exceptional experience at every touch point from curb to cloud. We are also working hard to attract new employees and upskill our talent within the department through PHL Bridge program. This workforce development program has initiatives aimed at increasing talent and retention. To support our work, this important work, our fiscal year 26 budget request is $564,062,025, an increase of approximately $1,879,000 or 0.3% over fiscal year 25 estimated obligation levels. The budget reflects our commitment as we focus on the celebrations planned for 2026 with an emphasis on beautifying terminals, upgrading our facilities, and enhancing our guest experience, along with furthering our air service development efforts, sustainability initiatives, and continued effort to develop a premier workforce that reflects the unique nature of our city. Thank you for the opportunity to deliver testimony here today. We are happy to take any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. How you doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
Just state your name for the record and please begin your testimony, sir.
Randy Heyman, Water Commissioner. Good afternoon, President Johnson and members of the City Council. Again, I am Randy Heyman, Water Commissioner. Joining me today are Lawrence Yangley, Deputy Water Commissioner of Finance, and Benjamin Jewell, First Deputy Water Commissioner, as well as other members of PWD's leadership team. I am pleased to provide testimony on Philadelphia Water's fiscal year 2026 operating budget. As the Commissioner, I have the honor of working beside 2,000 of the best water professionals in the nation who protect the health and safety of our community. They do this by ensuring that they deliver safe and high quality and reliable drinking water and the treatment of wastewater and stormwater to protect our rivers and streams. As you are aware, the Water Fund is an enterprise fund of the city. It is comprised of revenues generated through charges to our customers. The Water Department's operating budget is a component of the Water Fund, and it's this operating budget for which this testimony is being provided. The proposed fiscal year 2026 Water Fund budget totals $607.5 million, an increase of $71 million or 13%. Over fiscal year 2025 estimated obligation levels. This increase is primarily due to a Class 100 increase, personnel, to provide for, among others, labor, rate increase, movement of staff from capital to operating, and hiring critical positions for regulatory compliance. Class 200, purchase of services for permit compliance efforts to meet new federal lead and plumbing requirements and critical maintenance. Class 400, to replace out-of-date vehicles flagged for removal from service. The Water Department's operating budget supports our 3 core services: treatment and delivery of top-quality drinking water, collection and treatment of wastewater for the health and safety of our population and the environment, and management of stormwater to reduce pollution. Proper maintenance of our massive system of infrastructure is critical. Our system includes 3 drinking water treatment plants, 3 water pollution control plants, dozens of pumping stations, over 3,200 miles of water mains, about 3,700 miles of sewers, and over 25,000 fire hydrants. The Water Department must comply with existing laws and regulations set by state and federal government, and we anticipate additional regulations. Furthermore, Future challenges such as climate change and sea level rise complicate our planning. The department embraces integrated planning as a means of prioritizing limited funds for the most beneficial and cost-effective projects. This allows reasonable and affordable schedules for making progress towards long-term goals consistent with the department's mission and vision. To help keep debt service manageable, the department has been actively pursuing available state and federal infrastructure low-interest loan funding. And I'm glad to report that the department has applied for $951 million in state and federal funding, and thus far has been approved for $941 million in low-interest loans and $4.8 million in forgivable loans. The department has also applied for $223 million in grant applications and has been awarded $107 million thus far. Furthermore, the department is preparing to submit additional applications for state and federal funding in the next few months. The department remains firmly committed to water affordability and access. The city has been successful in increasing enrollment in the Tiered Assistance Program, TAP, with roughly 64,000 customers now enrolled in TAP. In addition, more than 16,000 customers are enrolled in the Senior Citizen Discount. In 2022, new policies were introduced that greatly reduced the number of customers eligible for payment-related water shutoffs, and we are continuing to work collaboratively with the Revenue Department and the Managing Director's Office to fine-tune those policies and increase outreach to customers facing shutoff or who have growing debt. In closing, I'd like to thank Philadelphia Water's workforce, whose efforts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, keep the water running, the sewers clear, and our wastewater clean. Our workforce is dedicated to improving quality of life for everyone in Philadelphia region. PWD is consistently working hard to operate in a manner that is cost-efficient, operationally effective, and thoughtful environmental and economic impacts in the present and future. This budget will allow us to continue to meet our essential charge of providing the water, wastewater, and stormwater services that are the cornerstone of public health in Philadelphia. This concludes my testimony. Thank you again for your time today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Just a couple brief questions before I turn it over to my colleagues. So, Mr. Atif, just in regards to our preparation for 2026, and I want to start off by just thanking you and your team, and I want to give a shout out to Shane. I saw Shane over there, just always being responsive anytime that we reach out to your office. Anytime I'm a civilian going through the airport, because I travel on a regular basis, so my experience has always been great, and I'll pick up the phone and call y'all and talk about my great experience, and thank you for having vegan options in the Philadelphia International Airport. Means a lot. As we prepare for the events of 2026, the administration has noted a $500 million investment. Could you break down what those investments are?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start, and I'm actually going to request that Appalingam, our Chief Development Officer, comes for a little bit more detail to this. So, as you know, Council President, we are an enterprise fund, and our funding primarily comes from the airlines in terms of rates and charges. So we entered into an agreement with the airlines a couple of years ago, and part of that agreement expanded their commitment, capital commitment to the airport, with collective amount of $1.8 billion. When I came into the office 2.5 years ago, our team looked through the projects that we had and focused certain amount of effort into projects that were going to be customer facing as part of that investment portfolio and prioritize them to ensure that 2026 is going to be a good year as people come and travel through the airport. These are inclusive of airfield, terminal, and landside projects, from landscaping and signage to in-terminal enhancements of digital displays and other facility improvements, including gatehold areas, as well as taxiways leading up to the airport gates that airlines use. So it's a subset of the overall capital program with a clear focus on delivering these projects by the end of this year. Some of them might trickle into early part of next year, but we are certainly aiming to have them all concluded before we see the traffic coming through. With that, I'll ask Api to kind of provide a little bit more detail into these projects and where they're at.
Good afternoon. My name is Opal. I'm the Chief Development Officer for the Department of Aviation. And as Atif said, we're excited to have embarked on this $500 million capital program to prepare us for 2026. We have projects focused on landside, terminals, and airfield. On the terminal side, something we talk about, and Atif mentioned in his opening remarks, we have our restroom renovation program. We have about $20 million dedicated to renovating about 8 restrooms. That also includes a custodial operations center that we opened last fall to make sure that the staff that is cleaning and maintaining our restrooms have a facility as well. We modernized the platforms for SEPTA, the airport line, last fall. We completed that project. That was about a $15 million investment, so we completed that. Right now, we are doing something called a terminal refresh, where we're going through our 7 terminals and making sure the painting, the lighting, the seating, the carpeting, the floors, walls, anything and everything a passenger sees and touches has been upgraded or modernized. So right now, there's a lot of construction activity happening in the terminals. You'll see a lot of construction barricades and also a lot of work happening overnight hours when there's less flights and less people in our terminals. On the airfield, we're rehabbing our main runway 9 right, 27 left. So that's also a nighttime construction that should be completed this summer. And there's about 50 projects, as Atif mentioned. I'm happy to get into the details, but just generally, we're addressing as much as possible for 2026. And one other thing I'll mention is as well with the restrooms that we are not reconstructing prior to 2026, we are refreshing those restrooms. So that means going in there, replacing broken fixtures, painting, upgrading lighting. So those will be all done by this fall as well.
Okay.
And Mr. President, I'm sorry, if I may, just want to, you might already be aware that on the 14th, there is actually a hearing specifically on 2026 preparation. We've been asked to participate in, and we will have an extensive a conversation and briefing on all aspects, including capital program for 2026.
Good. So I'll save my questions for that hearing. Just part of it, we'd like to get an update on how we're making sure that the $500 million is also equity invested for businesses, small businesses to participate in the projects that are taking place as we prepare for 2026. So you don't have to answer that now, but at that hearing, we'll have an opportunity to do a deeper dive.
We will get you that detail at the hearing, for sure.
I want to wrap up for my members, but also I see Michael Carroll over there. I know you work very closely with the Streets Department as well. Just want to thank you and your team for responding to Council's advocacy around the restoration of the $5 million for Vision Zero. Also, that goes toward, we see the funding and the new staff that's requested will go toward making sure we're more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly city. So I just want to acknowledge that. I want to also follow up on Councilmember Dr. Anthony Phillips. He introduced legislation to have speed cushions around schools in the city of Philadelphia. Can we get an update on how much progress has been made since he introduced that piece of legislation?
We have approximately 108 installed around schools, and we have 185 that are in the queue right now for design of the speed cushions around those schools.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. And then just last, Mr. Randy Heyman, Commissioner, just give us a brief idea. We know that every winter when it gets cold, there's always a water main break somewhere in some councilmatic district that we have to address. Once we have a water main break, it has significant impact on the residents that live in that area as well as the businesses that live in that area. Just give us a real brief overview of what your team is doing to be on the front end of replacing the pipes so we don't have water main breaks during
Absolutely.
the winter months?
I appreciate the question. To combat the consequences of an aging system, and it must be understood, we have a very old system here. The average pipe is probably about 75, close to 80 years old. But we have a plan, and we're proactive. And to combat the consequence of aging buried infrastructure, we substantially increased the number of water mains and sewers targeted for replacement or renewal each year. Water main replacement over the last 29 years has averaged 19 miles per year. We are ramping that number up with the goal of replacing 32 miles per year, 1.5% of the distribution system per year in fiscal year 2025 and beyond, at a cost of $5.25 million per mile. On the sewer side, we're having sewer replacement over the last 29 years has averaged 7.8 miles per year. PWD is ramping it up in sewer replacement rate to 14 miles of sewer reconstruction in fiscal year 2025, and increasing that number by 1 mile per year until it reaches 20 miles per year at a cost of $9 million per mile. And so we're doing the best we can to, one, analyze where the problems may exist, then number two, to be proactive and having a set gate at which we're doing repairs and replacement. It is an ongoing process, and it's one that is it is costly, as I mentioned, by the miles per, the dollars per miles.
All right, I also just want to acknowledge Steve Lorenz for his work and the things that he's doing in terms of streets department as well. And we got one more. Give y'all your props while y'all here. At this time, I am going to take a moment and acknowledge Councilmember, and this is right on time too. So Jim Harity, who's the chair of labor, who's also a member of Local 57, says there's a definition as to what is a pothole. And so I'm gonna let him lead off this round because there's a questioning regarding, is the water department talking to the streets department when developers are digging up our streets and leaving these official potholes? And I'm gonna let Member Harity lead this discussion, and then next we'll have Dr. Phillips, Jamie Gauthier, and Majority Leader Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
So thank you, Council President. Thank you all for being here today. Know your jobs are not easy. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of different people to make things with these numbers come to fruition. So with that, I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to ask them all. That way you guys can give them to me just for sake of time. So for water, some of the contractors have complained that their work has been delayed because of backlogs in water sampling testing that is required to complete projects. Are there any plans to streamline this process? And is there a staffing issue or a procedural issue? And then for aviation, you referred in your testimony to the economic impact study, which stated PHL and PNE combined to generate $18.7 billion in regional impact, economic impact. Are you able to provide a little more context on those numbers, and can you share the amount of tax revenue the city receives as a result of the operations?
I appreciate the question, thank you. As far as delays, we have many different parts of a puzzle that have to come together. One, there is the testing. Number two, there is the actual review of what's happening at the site that has to take place. And then number three, there is the procedures are properly followed. And so we are working with the contractors to evaluate how we can improve. And we're looking at what improvements that we can do in the testing protocol. And we've announced that to them, some things we can do to streamline it, and we're more than happy to do that. We're also looking at the possibility of going out to the field and doing a field test to see what are some of the problems that may exist. And we're also working with them to develop not only new protocols possibly for us within the organization, but to work with them as far as making sure they're following proper protocols at the site as far as testing protocols are going. And so we're making progress, I believe, but it is a three-piece puzzle that is going to take time for us to bring it all together.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember, thank you for that question. It frequently is asked of the airport as to how it contributes to the local economy. And the reality of the matter is that we facilitate commerce within our four walls that makes businesses successful who then contribute to the local economy. So we don't, as an enterprise fund, have a direct contribution financial to the city, but through the activities that we perform, we do have businesses that the city collects money
That's
from.
what I'm getting. Do you have a number of how much those businesses inside the airport generate in tax dollars?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to ask Tracy Borda to come up here. This work gets done under her shop, but to start with, there's about $400 million of economic impact overall to the region. Very specifically with Philadelphia, it is about $119 million. And I'm going to ask Tracy to come and speak to you the breakdown. And she'll also talk to you about a little bit about how the impact study is done with different parts of the study covering different aspects of the impact.
Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you guys have so many small businesses in there operating mom and pop shops that, make up our Philadelphia, what it is, something special because of these hardworking people. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Tracy Borda. I'm the airport's Chief Financial Officer for the Department of Aviation. Thank you for your, I'll bring this up closer. Thank you for your question. Yes, we had just conducted, we waited until kind of the harder times had passed and did an update to our economic impact last year. And it's great. I mean, when you have an international airport in your city, there's just tremendous amount of impacts, and those impacts have tiers. So as Atif explained, the total result was $18.7 billion economic impact. The tiers of impacts that happen, and I'll specifically end up answering your question, but you first look, and we work with the eConsult is who conducted the study, and first you have the impact that takes place right on airport, right? You have the airport itself, all the hiring that we do, the money we spend on contractual services, material supplies, equipment. You have all of the airlines, all of the other businesses, all of the concessions, all of those right there on our campus, and the impact that makes. And then from there, once you have an international airport, you end up you spur businesses to develop around you, right? Everybody who's there to support us, whether it's maintenance facilities, suppliers for airlines, parking facilities, all those things that end up popping up around an airport. So if you look at us on a map, you see all those businesses that have come to be. And then further out, you start to look at the regional impact, and that deals with things like tourism, right? And all the folks that come here to visit us. And see our beautiful city. So with that said, we absolutely have a direct impact on the city. And so ultimately the airport, it's about $120 million impact in taxes that are paid to the city through the wage tax, the sales and use tax, and business tax. And we have the breakdown of those if you need them. We're happy to supply your office with that.
No, that's great. I thank you. And always a pleasure dealing and talking with you at the airport. You guys are very accommodating, and we're working on some stuff together right now, and maybe get some more employees in there. Somebody who grew up in Southwest Philly, that was like a lifeblood to our neighborhood. Between the airport and when UPS came in and made their hub up there, I mean, you know how it is when you live in a neighborhood, one person gets a job, and then the next thing you know, the whole neighborhood's working over there. So I'd like to see some more of that, some more outreach that we're working on now in the neighborhoods to try to get some of them people in the airport. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Harity, for your expertise. Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to thank the Streets Department for all the work that they're doing to help our city, but we still have a lot of work to do, of course. There's a backlog of speed cushion requests that remain a concern in many neighborhoods throughout the city. What level of investment is going to be needed to reduce wait times and address community safety concerns more promptly? Financial investment will be needed for us to reduce the wait times and address the community concerns about safety and putting speed calming measures down.
Thank you, Councilmember, for your question. We can get back to you with the actual figure of what it's going to cost to definitely eliminate the backlog.
Got you. Also, in addition to that, have you considered, is there someone in your department that's solely responsible for working on speed calming measures only? Like, is there anyone in that department?
We have a traffic engineering unit that works alongside with the Office of Multimodal Planning, and we have Division 0 Task Force. So there's a combination of things that are working alongside each other.
I asked that question because I think that because there's such a significant amount of community input and value around this, maybe it would be, really beneficial to have a person who's responsible for community relations around speed calming measures, people that will help. And I see the job as not only talking to the public about the process, but two, tracking a system of helping people understand where they fall in line in the pipeline for getting the speed cushion. And if they're not eligible for speed cushions, speed calming measures such as a speed cushion, what else can they be eligible for? And helping the public understand that can be beneficial because the traffic engineers, they're focused more so on the implementation. We need someone that's going to be helpful with the innovation as much as possible. And then lastly, I just want to mention that we have in the city of Philadelphia, are we experiencing with our speed calming measures, like, are there any other innovative ideas that the department is exploring? Because we're not going to be able to get to every block with speed cushions at this point. So what are some other innovative ideas that are coming up and discussions about how can we slow down our traffic that's happening in our city?
They posted a Vision Zero annual report, and in the report, there are different types of measures in which they will be implemented, looking at the high injury network. There's every project that capital project in the city that we do, we look at traffic calming measures. Our signal projects, our paving projects, we add in the speed cushions. We look at it in every project that we have that comes into the city of Philadelphia. We don't necessarily have a unit that just specifically does that type of work, but each unit collaboratively comes together with ideas and suggestions around that.
Well, just real quick, Council President. Commissioner, I do appreciate your background and your work that you do, but to me, the mere fact that you couldn't provide a clear-cut summary on this tells me that this is not a focus of your energy and expertise. And that bothers me and a lot of neighbors in the city of Philadelphia. So I just want to talk about why, this is why people are not getting what they need when it comes to speed cushions. All right, Mike, just want to take the answer. Well, Mike's been around for a little while.
I'll try and just add a little context. So Mike Carroll, Deputy Managing Director for the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems. So I just want to maybe follow up on what the Commissioner was saying to your question about having someone designated. And you did elaborate that what you're thinking about is the engagement with the community. So we can certainly consider that between Otis and Streets. The key, though, I think that the Commissioner was getting at was that there's a few disciplines that are involved. So generally speaking, the traffic engineers are going to be the point of contact for the neighborhood. They do also have the expertise to evaluate whether or not a speed cushion should be implemented based on the criteria that they have and what they see when they do their studies. And then we're going to bring in the highways division in order to implement the speed cushion. And then there's some decision making about, whether we put in multiple sets or whether they're asphalt or whether they're rubber that are kind of in the weeds. and that's generally going to be a dialogue between the traffic engineering group and the highways division. So the traffic engineers, I think, are the closest to that role that you're talking about. They have control over the whole suite of options, whether we're looking at, stop signs or, kind of limiting the space for cars to speed, or putting speed cushions in, or looking at piloting one-way direction or something like that. They have that expertise to make those decisions. But what I'm hearing from you today, and I think you've been real clear about in our conversations before, is that you like to see more transparency from the resident's standpoint, so that, if the traffic engineers are speaking in a technical way that maybe is going over residents' heads, somebody can translate that. As a result of our conversations, I think we're putting online the mapping tool that we had discussed, so that'll be available for people to check on their own to see what the status of traffic calming is in their neighborhood throughout the city. So we appreciate that conversation we've had with you. And Otis has some infrastructure in place to support community engagement in general, so we can take that idea back and think whether we've got a solution that gets a little bit closer to what I think you're saying, translating for neighbors and layperson's term what's going on. But I think there's some tools in place. I think we're making some progress.
Thank you so much. I guess I reserve my other follow-up questions for the next round. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Michael.
Thank you very much. Members, I need one small adjustment. Member Thomas?
Thank you, Council President. Appreciate the grace. I'm going to be very quick. I'm not even going to take my whole time. I just specifically want to talk about aviation. The rest of my questions I'll submit in writing. But we've had some recent incidents, not just in Philadelphia, but across the country, looking at issues surrounded by aviation. And we know technology is going to take us places in the very near future, some places even right now, that a lot of us are not necessarily ready for. So when I'm looking at this global issue of emerging technology and new markets, right now in Philadelphia, there's no place where we have a hub outside of the Northeast Airport and, of course, our bigger airport for some of the other innovative things as far as carrying cargo, carrying people, and other places are preparing for those things. So what are we specifically doing as it relates to aviation and commerce to attract these new segments of traveling, both for people and for goods, that's coming down the horizon, so Philadelphia is prepared to stay competitive with other large cities?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Council Member. It is an emerging technology, and there are definitely certain parts of the country that seem to be getting a little bit more traction than others. For example, Orlando and Florida in general, because of the weather conditions and the population density. There are other airports that are also starting to do a little bit more research, trying to understand how the economy around these new technologies would work. We certainly are keeping it front and center as part of our long-term planning. I'm going to ask Opal to come up, if you don't mind, because her team oversees some of this planning work. I would tell you that we talk about these emerging technologies frequently in the industry conferences, and the momentum is not quite at a place where large-scale implementation seems realistic. It is in part based upon limitations around electrical infrastructure, but also regulations. We certainly are not sitting idly. We are watching what is going on in the community, and we are making sure that as those opportunities emerge, we have a plan of action. I'll let Api speak to long-term planning and how we're viewing that. Also talk a little bit about electric infrastructure on that.
Yeah, specifically talk about the electric vertical takeoff and landing craft initiative. And Council President, that's literally my only question. The rest I'll submit in writing for water, as well as for Mr. Carroll and Visual Zero stuff. Thank you, Council President.
Good afternoon again, Opal, Chief Development Officer. Great question. This was something that we have been looking at for a while from a long-term planning perspective, and where we could locate something like an eVTOL at PHL. And we have recognized that roofs of large facilities are what we could locate it on. So in future planning efforts, we have identified large square footages on roofs to possibly locate something like an eVTOL structure. When it comes to PHL, we are confined in terms of where we could build on the ground and giving priority to infrastructure like taxiways and runways at this time. And for eVTOL and with the standards that exist today, we know that it can't interrupt aircraft operations, that it has to operate independently from aircraft. So that's why we recognize that roofs of our buildings, our future buildings, could be potential locations.
Thank you. We'll follow up with
Okay.
more questions. I'm sure Dr. Amal will also have similar advocacy initiatives. She's been leading the charge around these type of vehicles on the ground, and I'm sure she'll have an interest in the air. And as I close out, the one thing I'll ask, and please don't do it right now, but in the course of answering other members' questions throughout our time this afternoon, because you and I have already spoke about this, I'm not asking it right now, but please make sure that you're taking the time to talk to members as well as the general public about what the airport has done to prepare for 2026 with all of the guests that's coming, and how we expect the airport to look very different than what it does right now, and how you all are prepared, because that's what you said, for the thousands of tourists that's going to be coming next year. So I ask you not answer that now so the council president can move on, but in the midst of answering other questions this afternoon, please include some of that in your responses. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Jamie Gauthier, the next Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson, the next Councilmember Nicholas O'Rourke.
Thank you, Council President. My questions are for Commissioner Del Rossi. Good afternoon. First, I've appreciated working with you over this past year, and I congratulate you on the accomplishments that you listed in your testimony. My questions are around street repaving. I want you to explain how the department is prioritizing which street repaving projects happen first. Have there been any adjustments to those criteria compared to previous years? And I'm asking this because we have streets in my district that very much need repaving, and some of this predates you, but we've been waiting for these street repavings for 4 years now with no action. I have a few other questions I want to get on record before you answer. By our calculations, the paving and roadway maintenance program's budget is decreasing by about $9.4 million in FY26, from $61.9 million in FY25 to $52.5 million in the proposed FY26 budget. My questions are, why is such a reduction being proposed despite the backlog of street maintenance requests and needs? How will this cut affect the department's ability to pave roads, fix potholes, and install safety improvements? And please explain what efficiencies or alternative funding sources will ensure that service levels in our neighborhoods are not compromised, and how the department will be held accountable for delivering results with a smaller budget. Thank you, Councilmember, for your questions, and thank you for the kudos for our department.
Yes.
Our paving list will be coming out right after these budget hearings. We are continuing paving from last year. We do have a list of paving streets that needed to be paved in the previous fiscal year, so they are starting that this week. They will be paving those streets. We do currently have a list that will be put out today, but as far as the efficiencies, I'm going to ask Deputy Managing Director Carroll to come up to talk about our budget and how we're going to approach the paving with that scenario.
Sure, and also, if I don't know if Mike can speak to this, what criteria do you use to determine where you're going to go first and where you're going to go next as it relates to which streets get paved in which order?
We have a list of the last time streets were paved, so we do different type of inspections. We have our highway yards go out and look at the conditions of the streets, and we have lists of when the street was paved in the past, and we try to get it into a cycle because you have a life expectancy of a street, so then we pave based on the life expectancy. But I will turn the rest of your question over to Deputy Managing Director Carroll.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, just to pick up on the point the Commissioner was making, there's a few different ways to prioritize, and conventionally what we would start with, and most jurisdictions would start with, was something like a condition index, which factors in what we see in terms of the condition of the street, the age of the street, how much traffic is on the street, you know, how much it's been subjected to utility work, that kind of thing. But in the past, I think for the Philadelphia Streets Department, we found that there's not been a good substitute for inspection, like eyes on the street, to really get a better feel for what's going on that particular block of that particular street. So we've relied pretty heavily on the inspection to kind of figure out how we would reprioritize somewhat away from what the computer puts out, for lack of a better way of putting it, in terms of paving condition index. There are new tools that we're trying to explore. So we did a pilot a couple years back where we worked with a startup company which attached some video equipment to a vehicle, did kind of a drive around parts of the city, and then fed that into a computer which has kind of a machine learning computer vision algorithm which can pinpoint defects in the street, and really interesting, promise or had the potential to pinpoint defects before they even happen, just based on what it's seeing on the street. We're not quite ready for prime time with that. I think we're interested in exploring, developing that kind of tool a little bit further. But that generally would be something that would provide a way to scale up that eyes on the street benefit we get from having inspectors who have experience maintaining streets to substitute. Generally speaking, this city has a lot of aging infrastructure. It doesn't surprise me that you're finding there's neighborhoods that have been seeking service for an extended period of time and are still in the queue. We were very grateful in FY25 that we were able to dramatically scale up the amount of paving. There is carryover from that year's budget into this year's budget, so we're not paying interest on debt and not being productive. We want to spend that carry forward down before we're taking on more debt. So if you look at the carry forward and the budget that we've got in the FY26 proposal, we're sustaining the dollar value of investment that we're looking at. The questions in terms of efficiency, I think one of the key things we have to understand is that there's a certain amount of capacity for us to deliver on a paving project, and we're pretty close to the max there. And it's not just what happens on the city side, it's the whole community of contractors and folks who are involved in paving who pay for us, but also pay for all the surrounding communities, who pay for PennDOT. And when we, collective with all of our partners in the region, push beyond that, what happens is you're inflating all the prices. And so you don't necessarily get the bang for your buck once you absorb that capacity.
Tiny follow-up, it's so small. Okay. I think I'm not so much asking you how you determine whether a road needs fixing. I'm asking you how you determine what you fix first and what order you go in.
Yeah, so
if you could address that, and also, is that something you would ever make public? I know the administration has taken to putting a lot of, sharing a lot of data about how we offer our services.
yeah, so we can follow with more information. Generally speaking, it's I would call it a risk management approach. And we're also looking for opportunities to get efficiencies. So if we know the water department is going to be doing work, or one of the utilities is going to be doing work, we may resequence a street so that we don't pave it, and then as we've had problems in the past, it gets dug up by somebody else for a separate reason. So a street that could really need paving really bad might get delayed, reprioritized, so it's no longer first if we know there's another project coming that would impact that street. So we can provide a little bit more information.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Gaudier. I also wanted to state for the record, Councilmember Gaudier stated at the beginning of her questioning that there was one street in her district where they were waiting for 4 years. If you all could just follow up with Councilmember Gaudier on that, that would be most appreciated. Thank you very much. Colleagues, as an FYI, we have 9 of us in the queue. So I'll ask that you keep your questioning to 3 minutes. Okay, I'm going to be very strict about that 3 minutes. When the bell rings, we are going to move on to the next colleague. And now it's my turn, which is great. So I wanted to start with a list of thank yous. And I'll start with our Aviation in the airport, of course, Atif, and the entire team, Shane, you know we love Shane. Everybody in council loves Shane. Tracy, I want to start naming names and getting myself in trouble, but we appreciate the entire team at the Philadelphia International Airport and P&E, of course, and have to give a shout out to Lakshman at American Airlines. Also for our Water Department, Commissioner Hayman, Sandra Scott for Intergovernmental Affairs. She's always very knowledgeable and helpful with all of our constituent cases. Laura Copeland and Benjamin Jewell. And then finally, for Streets Department, Amber Porter, who's the administrative assistant, Patrice Newble, with street lighting assistants, Kasim Ali, chief traffic engineer, who assists us with speed studies and traffic signs and lights. And last but certainly not least, and I'm doing him last on purpose because he has gone above and beyond the call of duty, true meaning of a public servant, and I am going to take a personal privilege to ask him to stand. Stephen Lorenz, Chief Engineer. We know that it's been a difficult year for you and your family, and you still rise to the occasion and always go out of your way to inspect locations himself after work and meet with our constituents and have assisted with so many cases, and one case in particular. So we just want to say thank you. Beth on my team thanks you. I thank you, and we appreciate you so much. So I just wanted to put a couple questions on the record. I'm going to put on my finance committee hat for the airport and also for the water department. If you all could just detail the minority participation numbers for your last 5 bond deals. And once you do that, if you could say if there are any unspent proceeds from any of the prior bond deals, and if so, how much?
I will have Lawrence Yangley, our Deputy Commissioner of Finance, join me. But I do want to make it clear that when it comes to minority participation, our goal is 33%. This year we have reached 36%. And so we've been able to do a very good and consistent job. And we take it very personally to make sure that we make ourselves available. We have a program where the minority contractors come and we speak with them, and I make the time to make sure I'm there to encourage them to participate. It's personal to me. My godfather was the first black pharmacist in St. Louis, and I worked from the ages of 10 to 18. So I know the importance of that dollar going to a minority or woman or disadvantaged business for that family and for that community. Give me just 1 second, please.
Sure. And I want to say thank you for the programs that you all have in bringing in small business owners to help them learn about the opportunities. We attended a fantastic forum at the down in South Philly with the airport, and I thought it was wonderful. But for this line of questioning, I'm particularly focusing on the bond deals.
The bond, okay.
Okay.
I will hand it over to Lawrence Yangley to take it from there.
Excellent.
Thank you. Lawrence Yangley, Deputy Commissioner, Finance, Water Department. As our background, if you can just please repeat your question, I will appreciate it.
Absolutely, and good to see you. If you could just detail the minority participation numbers for the last 5 bond deals.
The only detail, except if we can provide you with those details, the only detail we have is what our target participation was and how much we achieved. Most of this minority participation is within the capital budget, and some of them are subcontractors. We give the contract to main contractor, and we insist that certain percentage of minority participation is achieved.
Is this for the bond deals?
The bond D is what fund our capital project. So most of our capital project up to this point are funded by bond D. Very, very small percentage at this point is funded by any other grant, probably less than 1%. So all of our capital projects are funded by bond D, and most of them are for capital program.
I knew the bell was coming, so I'm going to put this question on the record. You may not be able to respond today. I would ask that for water and for airport, if you could just respond in writing to the council president for dissemination to the members. If you could just, again, detail the minority participation numbers for the last 5 bond deals, and not specifically for the contractors after the deal is approved and then you select the contractors for the various projects. I mean for the actual financing of the deal. I'm putting on my finance committee chair hat right now, okay? And if there are any unspent proceeds from any of those prior bond deals, and if so, how much? Have you encumbered them? And when is your next time coming to the market? Okay? Thank you very much. And that's for airport and for water. And if you could just submit it in writing within 10 days, if that's possible, that would be helpful. Okay? Thank you very, very much. All right. The chair now recognizes Councilmember O'Rourke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to Commissioners Del Rossi, Heyman, and Saeed. Thank you for being with us today and entertaining our litany of questions. I want to focus my questions on an issue that's sweeping across the entire Commonwealth, the privatization of municipal water systems. So, Commissioner Heyman, I want to chat with you for just a second. In 2016, the Pennsylvania legislature passed Act 12, which made it easier and more financially attractive for private companies to acquire public water systems. Since then, nearly 24 water and sewer systems in Pennsylvania have been privatized. These are corporate takeovers of the people's services. And these corporate takeovers have led to staggering rate increases, some as high as 167%. For example, in Exeter Township, average monthly water bills jumped from $43 to $114. The Pennsylvania Office of Consumer Advocate estimates that because of Act 12, Pennsylvanians are now paying an additional $85 million annually for water and waste services. At a time when Trump is openly signaling his intent to privatize public goods like UPS, like Amtrak, I'm deeply concerned about protecting Philadelphia's municipal services. Specifically for Philadelphia, the law department has advised my team that the city's charter explicitly allows for the privatization of the water department. So, I have 3 questions for the water department. Just to confirm, do you share that particular interpretation of the charter? Does the city, in fact, have the authority to sell off or contract our water and sewer services? The second question is, what legal or procedural protections exist to prevent private companies from acquiring Philadelphia's water system and driving up rates for residents? And thirdly, have there been any discussions, internally, externally, or otherwise, about privatizing any part of Philadelphia's water services?
Okay. Out of respect to the legal department, I will leave question 1 and 2 to be addressed by the legal department. The third question, though, that you ask as far as have there been any discussions, I have not been involved in any discussions on privatizing the water, Philadelphia water. I will say this, I do come to the table having worked at 2 other utilities, St. Louis and DC water, and now here, my third. Privatization is something that has been going on probably since 1995, as far as being an issue growing different momentum at different times in different cities. The bottom line is that in Philadelphia, the 2,000 employees that work on water live here. So that brings a sense of ownership in what the problem is and addressing the problem. Number 2, we are not a for-profit service. So even though we have at different times rate increases and other actions, we are a cost of service utility. So we price out and determine what the cost it is going to entail to build the new plant. We don't put in a buffer for how much our profit will be from it, and we're not driven by profits. So there's a feeling across the country amongst municipal utilities that we do a better job because we're homegrown and we are concerned and live with the answers that we present to the problems that are placed on our table.
I appreciate that. I heard the bill, and I'm going to honor Madam Chair's request. It is a concern for me to see the movement. I hear you saying since '95. I didn't even realize it was that long. But to see that movement in light of the current context, making sure that we shore up anything that could possibly remove from the people's hands their services that they need, I think is of a concern. That's why I raised the question. I hear you saying that we should perhaps ask the law department about that, but thank you for your responses. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilmember O'Rourke. And just for clarification, would you like Councilmember O'Rourke to make that request of the law department, or is that something that you all will provide during your follow-up from the hearing?
I would ask the council member to make the request.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Commissioner. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Lozada.
Madam Chair, thank you for being with us today. In November of 2023, I passed legislation to prioritize traffic calming measures for schools, recreation centers, and senior centers. And so I'd like to know where we are, how many schools, recreation centers, and senior centers have received those calming measures. Are we backlogged? How far back are we? And is it possible to get a report by district of the results of that?
Thank you, Councilmember, for your question. We can definitely get you a report. We have a breakdown of the traffic calming measures citywide. We have 108 schools completed. The rec centers and the senior centers, I can get those numbers for you. And we also, I can get you the breakdown of the numbers per district as well. I have them here, but I can get them to you.
Okay. And is there a backlog? Is there a backlog of?
There is a backlog, and based on Councilman Phillips's request last year when we were sitting here, and then throughout the year we've been having conversations, there's actually a traffic calming map. It's on phila.gov/traffic-calming, and there's a map, and you can see exactly where the treatments are currently, who is approved. There's, just put in addresses. If you have a specific location, you can share this map out, and they can see where they are in the process.
Thank you. Families are always talking to us about safety and making sure that their kids and that seniors, that folk can cross streets safely. In addition to calming measures, I'm always asked about crossing guards. Can you tell me how many crossing guards you currently employ? How much do crossing guards get paid? What is the retention strategy for crossing guards? And I'd also like a list of crossing guards, at least for my district. I'd like to know where they are and where are the requests. How many requests have we gotten that we've not been able to fill, and the why?
Thank you for your question. We have, by June, the end of June, we will have over 800 school crossing guards. We currently have Future Track, which comes in, and we essentially use the Future Track to fill some of our other positions. But for school crossing guards, we particularly try to flyer in neighborhoods because you have to be within a mile of your location, because we don't want to have someone depend on vehicle or transit to get to their location. So we try to recruit within 1 mile of the location. At the town halls, we'll have a table trying to recruit school crossing guards. We post on our social media trying to gain people to want to apply for our crossing guards. It's a lot of word of mouth in that capacity. So we try to take every angle we have to bring on school crossing guards.
What have been the challenges that you all are experiencing in order to recruit crossing guards? Because I traveled through different neighborhoods, and in some corners, there's one crossing guard in each corner, and in others, there's absolutely none. And there are neighborhoods like mine, right, who, folks are saying, I've applied and I've not heard, or I applied, I got a first call back, and then I never heard again. Like, what are the challenges that you all are experiencing, and why is this position so difficult to fill?
I'm going to turn that question over to Deputy Commissioner Newman.
Good afternoon, Councilmember. My name is Chris Newman. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Administration for Streets. We actually have a lot of good news with school crossing guards this year. We've hired about 241 of them so far this year, and just as a comparison, last year around this time was about 148. We're doing a lot of different things in terms of recruitment. One of the things that we implemented last year that we had a lot of success with is we have pre-orientation before they're hired. So as candidates get on the list for school crossing guard from the OHR department, we get that list and we bring people in and we give them a preview of the job. We tell them exactly what they're getting involved in, how much they're going to make, how we assign people to different crossing guard places, and we actually have them go through the clearance background process at that point in time. Our retention rate has gone from 15% turnover to 9% turnover in that time. So from last year to this year, we went from 15% turnover to 9% turnover. We think in large part because of that process, the salary for them is about $17.89 an hour.
How much is it?
$17.89 an hour.
Okay. Are you good?
One more question really quickly. I have several bridges in my district that are closed at the same time, causing major backups, causing a lot of frustration and stress. Can you all tell me what is the plan to improve the city's aging infrastructure, specifically in districts like mine where the bridges have to be closed emergency, right, last minute without notification to communities, causing everybody to it throws everybody's day off. I need to know, when is the Wyoming Bridge going to open? What is the plan for Hunting Park, the Hunting Park Bridge to open? They are in a very close, in a very close distance from each other, and basically what we're creating there during morning and afternoon rush hour, we're creating a gridlock.
And I'll ask that you keep the response brief, okay? Thank you.
I can get back to you with that information.
Do you have anything that you'd like to place on the record, though?
We're working on the Wyoming Bridge internally, and
What does
we
that
can get
mean?
back to you with the opening dates.
What does that mean? We're working on it. I know we're working on it because I know we see people over there, but I need to know what is the plan. We closed it without notice, right? Without community notice. I need to know what to say to residents. What's the plan? How long is this bridge? Are both of these bridges going to be closed? And how do we prevent this from occurring in the future? I mean, I'm sure that we're doing inspections often, so we should know we're leading up to a point where we can no longer hold this work off. How do we prevent that from happening in the future?
So Wyoming Bridge was not a planned closure, just to be clear. There was an element of the bridge which deteriorated beyond repair, which led to water getting into the bridge, and so that was an unforeseen situation which forced our hand in terms of closing the bridge. So we are working on a project to get traffic across the bridge. It won't be a full reopening of the bridge. That project has to go through some design, and we're starting from a standing stop. We got to get that process going. I don't want to give you a time frame because it's pretty likely that any time frame I give you would change once we learn more about the bridge's condition, once we learn about our ability to get contractors on board. In terms of the inspection, this is something we're working on because we don't want that to ever happen again. And what I can tell you is that we're in a conversation with PennDOT so that we can work together. We can partner with PennDOT. We have a lot of bridges for a city. PennDOT has a lot of bridges across the Commonwealth. And so we're going to share capacity in order to make sure that the inspection is upped a little bit, the frequency is upped a little bit so that we can avoid that situation in the future. But what we will get you is a little bit more detail on both Hunting Park and Wyoming so that you have some information that you can share.
I would appreciate that. Madam Chair, I'm going to ask that we work towards a proactive plan. We do have a lot of roads and bridges, right? And these bridges are inspected. I don't know if they're quarterly, I don't know if it's annually, I don't know if it's monthly, but there has to be a better process in place for us to be able to respond to some of this aging infrastructure so that we're working with communities and not creating gridlocks the way that we have in that part of the district. I know that it's frustrating to my residents, and I can't imagine having two bridges in such close proximity to each other in other neighborhoods creating the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Lozada, and I know that you all verbally responded to the question. I ask that you also follow up in writing. Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple questions for streets and water. First, just want to point out in the 5-year plan for the streets department under Class 500, it looks like for FY 25, 26, 27, it's an estimate of $15 million. And then in the operating budget, and I don't see it anywhere listed in here, so I don't know if that was a misprint. I do see where there are the FY 24 actual obligations in Class 500. This is particularly under transportation, but there is no reference to this $15 million that is mentioned in the 5-year plan in the actual operating budget. So I just want to see if you guys can take a look at that to see what that is, see if that's an omission or an error. But $15 million is a lot of money. So just, please take a look at that for me. Also, on the same line, the questioning of Councilmember Lozada, I have a bridge in my district between Glenwood and Sedgley, the Margie Street Bridge, that's been closed for forever. It seems like, so can we get an update? The community would love an update, folks in the 16th Ward, on what is the status of that particular bridge. And I have a question about crosswalks and striping. There seems to be a lot of crosswalks being put in place that are nowhere near, I guess, the intersections or corners where stop signs are in my district, particularly on 19th Street. And so can you all talk to us about the placement of crosswalks and street restriping in our city? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to turn your FY budget questions over to Deputy Commissioner Newman, and then I'll answer your other questions that follow.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council Member. $15 million does look like a lot. It's actually indemnities, which are claims against the city for roadway and traffic work. That will pop up each year as indemnities. At the end of the fiscal year, you'll see it blanked out. At the beginning of another fiscal year, and it'll come back again at the end of this fiscal year, coming up now. So it doesn't show up in our budget initially. It comes in towards the end of the fiscal year once those indemnities are assigned to the department.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The bridges in question are PennDOT bridges. So we can reach out to PennDOT, get you information on those specific bridges, and get back to you with that information. And the crosswalks are placed within the ramp locations. The stop bars, depending on volume, are set back from the radius of the curb. So depending on the volumes in the areas and the locations for your ADA accessible crossings, that's where your crosswalks are marked.
I heard the bell, so thank you. I think that, so when you are locating a crosswalk, or even the restriping in general, the other question was about the restriping and repainting. How often do you go out to repaint or restripe the crosswalks in certain intersections?
This additional line striping crew that is in this budget will actually help us with that. We mark our streets after we pave, and then we usually refresh along during the seasons where we're paving. We usually refresh the marking, so we try to get on a regular basis with it, but if there's anything in particular that sticks out, just shoot us an email and we can look into it.
I can send you 50 intersections, literally.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
And I'll submit my questions to water, the rest of my questions for streets in writing.
Okay, and if we have time, we can do a second round, but I don't know that we'll be able to achieve that today. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Ahmad.
Madam Chair, I'm going to put all my questions in for all three departments. First, I'll start with streets. If I could get an update on the Chinatown Stitch project with respect to which merchants are going to be disturbed during this time, when the project will start, and what should we be expecting in terms of length? So that's streets. And the second part for streets is thank you to my colleague, Council Member Ketsi Lazada, for asking so many questions about the crossing guards. That's a special interest to us. I wanted to know, in terms of placement of crossing guards, I know you hire them. Are you working with the school and police for actual placement for the safety plan, or is it something just you do? That's street. For aviation, a question about carbon footprint, and I believe you're installing some geothermal technology, and I would like a little update on that. That's in the Northeast Philadelphia Airport. I'd like to get an update on that. And the second part for you is hosting the World Cup and the 250th anniversary of the country's founding, in addition to many events and festivals, are attracting a lot of visitors. One of my priorities in the lead up to the festivities is to ensure city departments and law enforcement are ready for the influx of travelers. A component of this is ensuring our workforce is prepared for more undesirable aspects of large events like human trafficking. I would like to have you give us an overview of some work that the airport might be involved in this aspect. And who do I have left? Water. Water was, just one question for water about fluoride in drinking water, and having a health secretary who doesn't believe in it, is it impacting us locally? And those are all my questions, Madam Chair. And we can start with streets too. I'll remind you if you forgot what they were. Chinatown Stitch was the first question.
I'm going to turn the Chinatown Stitch over to Deputy Managing Director Carroll. I correct that, Chris Pahalski.
Hi, good afternoon, Council Member. I think I got the second part of your question about the Stitch of when it is currently scheduled to start. We're in the design process now. The federal funds need to be obligated by September of 2026. We're looking to start construction in 2027, early 2020, or late 2027. That could slip to 2028. To be clear, this is a joint city PennDOT project. So although we're leading the current design phase, it will be bid by PennDOT. And I missed the first part of your question about the Stitch.
About small businesses and merchants who are going to be disrupted by that. Do we have a plan to make sure they don't suffer economically?
Yeah, no, but it is on our radar. We're currently working on putting out a contract to maximize participation. But in terms of construction disruption, we will be putting that together as part of our constructability review with PennDOT.
So, Madam Chair, I would like to make sure there's an actual plan of knowing who are the people who are going to be disrupted, and what multi-agencies perhaps who will make them whole, so while this place is disrupted, their business they don't go out of business, because these are small businesses.
Yeah, we are happy to get that to you. Just to set expectations about the timeline of that, we don't have a construction plan yet, so we don't even yet know what are the locations or what streets will we have to shut down. So it will probably be sometime later this year or early next calendar year before we can get that to you.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you.
And to Councilmember Ahmad's point, if you could also give her the information regarding the coordination with Commerce regarding the impacted businesses. Correct, Councilmember Ahmad?
Yes, the Merchants Fund would probably be involved in this, and maybe other agencies. And maybe this needs to be maybe a multi-agency contribution to something that can be put out to the merchants in the area.
Yeah, we will be happy to when we get to that point in the delivery process. We don't even exactly know what businesses will be there by the time we get into construction, but we were happy to work on that with Commerce.
Thank you. And my other question was about the street crossing guards.
We do work with the schools and the police department, and we do try to go into the communities to get people to sign up to become a school crossing guard.
Yeah, that was a great answer you gave, so I got that. And the last one is for not last one, second one is for water. The fluoride should be short answer.
On fluoride, we are following the national attention that is there. We're working with the health department. We do use fluoride in our system. I attended an award program that was at, I believe it was U of Penn, and they talked about how the use of fluoride was discovered at U of Penn and the importance of it going back hundreds of years. And so it is something that we're watching. So no immediate plans
to disrupt that?
No, not at this time. But at the same time, we will work hand in glove with the health department.
Our health department.
Our health
Philadelphia.
department. Our health department.
I'm just worried about the federal health department that potentially could disrupt this plan. I'm just going on the record that we are still doing what we're supposed to do. So thank you for that. And Atif, if you could quickly answer.
Yeah, because we're way over time. I gave you an extra minute as
Well,
well.
can he put it in, give me 1 second and then put it in writing? I only want to hear about the human trafficking.
We'll give you extensive answers for both of them, but let me touch on the human trafficking. It's a really important issue for our enterprise as well. As an airport, we are a gateway, and as good things come through, a lot of evil happens through those same paths. We do have a program in place. We brought in Cassie Schmidt as our Chief Strategy Officer, who has experience rolling out similar programs for large-scale events, specifically Super Bowl in Minneapolis. She's going to be spearheading that effort with us. She's looking forward to working with you and your office as well. But there's a plan of action that is in place. We'll put that in writing and get you a little bit more detail. And we'll do the same thing for PNE and the sustainability efforts you referenced.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me those questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Councilmember Ahmad, Chair of our Public Health Committee. The Chair now recognizes Councilmember Landau.
Madam Chair, thank you, Madam Chair. 2 streets questions and 2 water questions. First, for the streets department, the city of Philadelphia recently settled a lawsuit, as you indicated in your testimony, over curb ramps. And the city, under that settlement agreement, will have to install or remediate 10,000 of these curb ramps. Is the city itself now doing the work on the curb ramps? Or is it contracted out?
Thank you for your question. I'm going to turn that question over to Deputy Managing Director Michael Carroll.
So we have not stood up the ADA construction crew. We're still working on that process, but that is not going to be a major factor this year in terms of us increasing significantly the number of ramps that we're putting out on the street.
Let me be clear. Are you saying that the city will at some point do these curb ramps, curb cuts themselves, but we're not yet doing that? We're still contracting out?
Yeah, and I want to be clear, there's probably no point in time where we're doing all of the curb ramps, but we can take on ramps as part of the package of, building the capacity there.
Okay, I want to double down on what I've always said. I think we should be doing these ourselves. I actually think it's a great pilot program, great program for training and workforce development. The city could do it well and not wrong and take responsibility for that and not have the liability in the future. So anything you need from me, I'm all about us getting this off the ground. Let's do it ourselves.
Thank you.
The second question, following up on some of my colleague, Councilmember O'Rourke's questions, was about the Zero Fare pilot program, which which is being cut. And this is the SEPTA Zero Fare pilot program. Why was the funding for this pilot cut from the mayor's proposed budget?
So, as the mayor set priorities for the budget, the decision was made that that pilot should reach its conclusion. We're very confident that our investment in SEPTA, represented in both the operating subsidy and the capital subsidies, is us putting our foot forward and doing more for SEPTA than any other jurisdiction, and at this point in time, including the state. In terms of what SEPTA does with that funding, I have green light to kind of tell you guys we're going to have a conversation with SEPTA to see if there's ways for us to extend the zero fare program fairly early in that conversation, but we're hopeful we can accomplish something with that goal in mind.
Appreciate you. I think it's pretty unanimous here in this body that we all want that program back. Thank you so much. Water Department, two quick ones. The city closed two Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority, Penvest federally subsidized low-cost loans totaling approximately $109.8 million for water and wastewater system improvements in 2024. The loans will be used to fund water main replacements and sewer replacements throughout the city. How will the almost $110 million in PenFest loans for water main and sewer replacements be allocated across the city's infrastructure projects? And are there any specific neighborhoods or districts that will see prioritized improvements? And just one more after that.
Okay. In prioritizing the projects, we look at an analog of the age of the pipes, when the pipes were last treated, and make a decision on that. It's not by a specific neighborhood. It's not by looking at a blank piece of paper and then tallying how often we've been in that neighborhood or touched that neighborhood. It looks at the needs of the infrastructure itself. And so we'll analyze across where we need to do it. Now, there were two projects that dealt with lead replacement with Penvest, and we did receive $9.9 million there, where we will be able to, in the pilot program, remove, and this is basically in the Kensington area, we'll be able to remove the lead laterals. That's one issue. Lead laterals under the law regarding lead replacement, they have to be removed. That mainly is, the lateral is owned by the homeowner. And so, but in this situation, in those projects, the first one we received 9.9, we will be able to go in and remove the lateral, and then we applied for a second one for 9.9. And so hopefully we'll receive a second grant and be able to do that. But as your question as far as environmental justice and making sure that we're going into every neighborhood, we are focused on that, we care about that. We look at the age of the pipes, and then we go in with a certain analog and make a determination of which area we have to address. But we're doing everything we can, and we make sure that we don't leave any neighborhood out that requires our assistance at that given time.
Thank you for that. One last question about the city's Opal system. So you know that we're the city, I'm the head of the technology committee. We've got Project Opal, which is tasked with replacing the city's aging financial, contracting, and purchasing systems with the modern integrated system, which is going to simplify things and hopefully streamline all of our projects. The proposal mentions modernization efforts like the Opal project to replace legacy financial procurement systems. How will these technological upgrades improve operational efficiency and transparency in the long run for the water department?
Philadelphia isn't different from a lot of other cities that have had possibly an older IT system or has, through the years, used a patchwork to repair. And the bottom line is, and now this is a lawyer speaking, not an IT specialist, the bottom line is that the system will allow us to be more efficient in getting information. It'll allow us to make, I believe, reports easier than we have in the past. It'll allow us to communicate easier information to the public in general. So it's a large project. I will allow Lawrence Yangley, my deputy commissioner for finance, to speak on it just a little bit.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. If he can give a 30-second response, that would be great. After this, I'm going to recognize Councilmember Driscoll and then recognize Councilmember Brooks. And for the remainder of the colleagues who are in the queue, I'm going to apologize in advance. We are not having a second round. You can submit the remainder of your questions in writing, okay? So we'll take the deputy for 30 seconds, then Councilmember Driscoll, and then Councilmember Brooks. We'll end with Councilmember Brooks, and then everyone else in the queue will submit your answers in writing, okay? Thank you for understanding.
I'm Lawrence Yangley. Oh, is it on? Lawrence Yangle, Deputy Commissioner of Finance, Philadelphia Water Department. What Opal is doing, and we are actively involved with Opal. For instance, if we were here today, the question the councilwoman asked, I will press the button on my laptop and it will give me financial information. When we go to prepare budget, for instance, we have to manually in Excel type historical information. Of course, you know what that means for accuracy. But Opal is going to streamline that kind of process that we'll be able to utilize the software to be more efficient in our reporting. And of course, the procurement process. We have about 17-step procurement process, and that brings considerable delay in our procurement process. We hope that it will be one step advanced to another person with all the supporting documentation, and you will be able to approve it online, and vendors can go in the system to monitor the flow of some of this information. So it's a new software. We are very much eager about it, and we hope it will perform as we have been promised by the consultants. I think it's a good thing for the city, and we are happy to be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very
much. Thank you very much, Councilmember Landau. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be quick. So to start with Commissioner Hayman. Commissioner, in my role as Chairman of Public Utilities, you, Glenn, Ben, your entire leadership team have been great working with us, and I appreciate that. I think when people, whether it's a pothole or whatever it is in the street, our constituents are either blaming me, or it's the water department, or the streets department, and a lot of times it's third-party contractors. So you don't necessarily have to answer this, but it's something that I would like you to look into, and that's the vetting of the third-party contractors. Whether it's a bonding delay sometimes, or a work order delay, or some shoddy work, I think we're all getting blamed for that. And I think if we can get a little bit better vetting up front, and we get better contractors, that might go a long way to solving the problem.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for the direction, and we will look into that.
Thank you. And Atif, I wanted to thank you. It was only less than 9 weeks ago where a plane come down to my district, and your department was there, as well as all my colleagues, immediately on the phone asking what we needed, and I want to thank you for that. I'm not going to bring up the bathrooms because I think you got to deal with Mayor Parker about the bathrooms down there. I think she's doing a good job on that. But I would like to comment real briefly about the valet program. I know the valet program. If you could just comment on that real quickly.
Sure, certainly. Thank you. First of all, thank you for your kind words. What we're trying to do at the airport is trying to figure out ways to be able to make it incrementally more comfortable for people to be able to transact at the airport. The valet program is a program that deals with clientele that are willing to pay a premium for a certain level of access to the airport that is a little bit more expedited. Integrated with that is an online platform where they actually can do the booking rather than having to come in and transact at the airport. I highly recommend trying out this service. It takes away a lot of friction from travel, and I understand that it's not for everybody, but we want to be able to provide options to everybody, and I think it provides a very important premium service for customers, and it's very well recognized and appreciated by our customers.
So we'll advertise that to get the word out.
We've been advertising it, yes, and we'll continue to scale that up, and hopefully people listening to this testimony today will take an opportunity and be out there using the service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And lastly, I just want to comment, Commissioner, Streets Commissioner, same thing with the plane crash. Your department was great with me. Rich Montanez, I had on speed dial. He's always been there on the big issues with us, and I can't thank you enough for that. I do want to double down, though, on Councilmember Phillips' traffic calming measures. And it's really been a big issue. I think post-COVID, people drive crazy, and we're making changes here in the city. I remember in my old neighborhood, if you went fast or you blew a stop sign, there was always a police officer who was going to pull you over. That doesn't seem to be the way we remedy these things anymore. But if we could somehow, in your engineering department, maybe when you have this repaving every 4 or 5 years, whatever your schedule is, maybe the immediate ones get done quickly, around the schools and the rec centers. But then when you do your regular repaving, maybe you do the repaving and I don't even know if that makes sense, but I'm just trying to put, the non-essential ones in the long queue and the real essential ones in the short queue. And that's just a comment. You don't have to respond. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for acknowledging the staff. We do have a great crew, and they were out there hands-on, so kudos to them, and thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you. Last individual we're calling is Councilmember Kendra Brooks, but also want to take a moment to also acknowledge Rich Montanez. He get them late night text messages saying, I need help. The same way I text Steve Lorenz like when it was a Sunday night one time. I know he's gonna have some words for me, but we on the ground, we on the front line, and my members are on the front line trying to help people, so we do appreciate y'all stepping up and being responsive, all of you in this context. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Council President. I want to give my kudos and shout outs to folks too. When I call rapid response around what, similar to what Council President, like we're boots on the ground. So the little thing, I remember when someone stepped in the pothole or something on my block and I was able to find a number and someone came out right away to assist. So thank you, streets and water, just because everyone had to be involved because I didn't know who the thing belonged to. I appreciate you guys being servants, community servants, and helping us do our jobs better. I'm gonna just run down everything to have it on record. And this is all for water. At the end of 2024, the Water Department began auto-enrolling customers in TAP who were participating in the Federal Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program. How is that process going? And what steps did the city have to take to automate the enrollment? The Water Department is proposing a rate increase for the 4th consecutive year. The average annual water bill payment is up more than $200 since the first increase. Your testimony says that the rate increase is to replenish critically low liquidity fluids, and you have 2 such funds. At what level would you consider the funds to be stable? My next question, I'm glad that Philadelphia has a moratorium on water shutoffs for non-payment in the winter. However, water shutoffs in the summer can be extremely challenging and dangerous for families and the elderly, particularly when the temperatures continue to rise and the violence swells in the warmer months. Many cities, including Chicago, have no water shutoffs for non-payment. Has Philadelphia considered a moratorium on water shutoffs in the summer? And lastly, participation in the TAP program is roughly 30% of eligible customers or less. Despite specific investments in trying to reach more people, what will the average monthly bill look like for folks who are enrolled in TAP?
I'll address the third question first, if I numbered them correctly, where you talk about water shutoff and have we considered a moratorium on shutoff. First, I want to say, and this is known across the country because I'm on different boards with the with water utilities and all. And one thing across the country, they always ask, what are they doing in Philadelphia? And they always speak with respect for the safety net that we have for those. The problem we have with a year-round water shutoff situation is the need for revenue, okay? And if we don't receive the revenue and we are a cost-for-service utility, then we will not be able to always provide the water services that we need to the public. What I always tell people is that when it comes to water and protecting the health and safety of the community, we have to do 100%. So we can't get to a point where we don't have the funds and I can say we'll only protect health and safety 30%. It's 100%, that's the obligation. And so it takes a certain amount of funds to keep us operating. And so I'll allow Susan Crosby from Revenue to talk more about the questions you asked on TAP.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Susan Crosby, Deputy Revenue Commissioner for Water. Thank you, Councilmember, for your question. First, to follow up on the shutoffs, we do have a robust set of protections for customers who are facing shutoff. First, we use administrative data to automatically protect families with children, families with seniors in the home, and our customers who are receiving income-based assistance. Those flags protect over 260,000 customers, households last year, and are on track to protect those households again this year. We also have, and those customers will never receive a shutoff notice, so they don't even know that they're receiving the benefit. They're just not going to get that shutoff notice. If they do receive a shutoff notice and they belong into one of those protective groups, or they're a tenant whose landlord is responsible for paying the water bill but is not, or there's a person living in the household with a disability, those customers can contact us, and we call it our Raise Your Hand program, and they can receive protection from shutoff as well. So we understand that shutoffs is a very traumatic process for our customers to go through, and so we try to do everything possible to prevent using that tool, including adding all of those protections. For your questions about auto enrollment, we started auto enrolling customers through a pilot program in late 2023 with the federal LIWOP recipients. We were able to enroll over 3,200 of those recipients into TAP. We then partnered with the Office of Integrated Data for Evidence and Action in the Managing Director's Office to use administrative data to auto-enroll customers who were identified as low-income with participating in other means tested programs. And as a result of that, we have enrolled an additional 37,500. So we've almost tripled the participation in our TAP program over fiscal '24, and we continue to do auto enrollment in incremental files each month.
Thank you for that information.
And you had a question on rate stabilization. I think you asked how
Yes.
much. I'll let you repeat the question. I'll have Lawrence Yangley come up, Director of Finance.
Okay. The question was, at what level would you consider the funds to be stable? Around the low liquidity funds?
The question of...
I'll start. It said the Water Department is proposing a rate increase for the 4th consecutive year. The average annual water bill payment is up more than $200 since the first increase. Your testimony says that the rate increase is to replenish critically low liquidity funds, and you have 2 such funds. And at what level do you consider the funds to be stable?
Lawrence Yangley, Deputy Commissioner, Finance, PWD. The Rate Stabilization Fund was established as a rainy day fund where when our revenue was short, we could draw down on the fund. From 2017, when it was above 200 million, we are now at 125 million. We have asked for rate increase. If that rate increase is now granted, that fund will go to near zero. And the very good effort that the city is applying to help customers like the TAP program, which grew from 14,000 to around 60-something thousand now, is costing the water department revenue losses. And these losses have to be paid by other customers. So these are some of the reasons that we have to be drawing on the rate stabilization fund, and some of the reasons why the cost to the customer keep increasing. Also, of course, we have other cost impact. For instance, payroll salaries have been increasing. Each time you increase pay, that has to be paid by the rates.
There's typically industry guidance for a water utility in terms of what they should have in some form of reserve. And the water department uses a firm that's been working with us for a very long time to establish that guidance. And so perhaps we can focus the response on what that guidance is, what that industry guidance is for a rate stabilization fund or a reserve fund for a water utility.
The industry guidance that was established by the rate stabilization fund is that PWD should maintain at least 135 million in the rate stabilization fund. So that was the target that was set by the Water and Sewer Rate Board. We have maintained that target for a little while, but we are now below that target. The industry target that is set at how much day of cash you should have in your account. That target is set about a 1 year target about 363 days. PWD maintains 154 days of cash on hand. That means if anything were to go wrong, that you don't have any money coming in, how long can you survive? PWD is below that target, and it's not even below the target that was set by the rate stabilization rate board for the PWD operations.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Member Phillips?
Well, just really quickly, I just want to comment that one of the things I was hoping to see in the budget was the following of funding for things that may be cost. It's cost a lot of money for speed common measures such as speed cushions. So I don't see anything here that says anything about funding for giving residents signs that can like slow down signs, as well as maybe other signs that they can use to help with speed common measures, as well as I will also be interested in you all doing a campaign that's public and social media, also visually on a television or whatever it might be, just talking about why it's important to slow down in these streets. So literally not every street's going to get speed common measures, and we need to be honest as a city about that. It's also not the right thing to do. So we need to start giving people other alternatives to show that we're serious about this. So just would like to see that in the budget. I'm not sure if it's there. Thank you.
And so as we wrap up, just one comment, and shout out to Chris Pachowski over there too, Director of Strategic and Policy Initiatives around Vision Zero. So thank you, Chris. We see you. What Member Phillips talked about, Dr. Phillips, and it's part of the reason why I did to get out the bike lane legislation, right? When we talk about pedestrian, as Councilman Jamie Gauthier taught me, is it pedestrian violence? Traffic violence, right? And our leader in this body, Councilmember Thomas, has been leading this issue to get people to slow down, right, and making sure we're preventing deaths from happening. But I think it also comes down to education. You on your cell phone while you're driving. You on your cell phone while you're walking. Got the earplugs in, not paying attention. You walk dead in the middle of traffic, right, on the phone. And so, yeah, some level of education and awareness, right? Remember, like, this is your brain on drugs when we were kids, right? We still remember it now. So maybe some level of elevating the conversation around educating the public around just slowing down and being mindful of your surroundings and so forth. I think that would be helpful. And my last comment before we wrap up, I'll follow up with you all offline. But with that being said, this is our last round, it's 4 o'clock. Members, thank you for all being here. We appreciate your hard work and your dedication. And with that being said, are there any other questions from the public? Members of the City Council, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilmember Gilmore Richardson for a motion that the public hearing and meeting on the bills and resolutions before the committee today stand in recess until Tuesday, April the 8th at 10 a.m.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the public hearing and meeting on the bills and resolution before the committee today stand in recess until April the 8th, 2025 at 10 a.m. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Good.